Hi, welcome to another episode of Talk Connected Podcast. My name is Virginia Murray. I'm a licensed professional counselor. And what is Talk Connected Podcast? Well, we are a podcast that hopes to inspire, educate, and inform the community on mental health and emotional well being. So, it is just a place to connect with real life community and people about real life challenges. So, last episode, if you missed it or if it is a topic that stands out for you, we discussed grief. We covered the topics of what is grief, how to manage it, how we can support ourselves through grief, and how we can support other people through grief if we are in that position. So, before we get started today, like always, I want to encourage you to just check in on yourself. How are you feeling today? Is there something that you can give yourself that you may need? Right? Do you have to ground yourself and step outside? Do you want to schedule a massage? I was like, ooh, massages are so necessary and so helpful to us sometimes. Maybe you don't need a massage though. Maybe you just need to go for a walk at the park. Disconnect from the stress of the day, momentarily before you find resolution or take steps to solve whatever issue or problem may be occurring in your life. So take a second to check in on yourself. Like always, if you need to pause the podcast, and just ask yourself that feeling. How am I today? How am I feeling today? And is there anything that I need? So, outside of that, we're going to continue in. The topic of today's podcast is mental health. What is mental health? So, what is mental health? Mental health is our emotional state and well being. It is how we're feeling, kind of like that check in on yourself. How are you feeling with yourself today? How are you feeling with where you're at in life right now? Just your present moment, mental and emotional state. What's going on? Is there turmoil? Are you feeling okay? Are you neutral in life, but you feel like you should be doing more? Do you feel overwhelmed? Stress? Are you suffering from symptoms of anxiety, depression? The one thing to also point out is that everyone has mental health. Whether or not you have a diagnosis, you do not need a diagnosis to have mental health. Mental health is the state of being that you're in when it comes to your emotions and what's going on with your brain. Cognitively is the clinician, term that people like to use in the field. Your cognitive thought pattern, just your cognitive stability. That's the mental health part of it. And of course, it's connected to your emotional well-being. So we're going to dive all into this, right? So we talk about emotional well-being, psychological well-being, and social well-being. What is your emotional well-being? Well, I got some definitions for you, right? So your emotional well-being is being able to manage your emotions effectively, express feelings appropriately, and cope with life's ups and downs. So if you have a challenge in front of you, how you handle that challenge or how you can handle that challenge, the capacity that you have to handle that challenge shows exactly where your emotional well-being is. If you are having a difficult time navigating a challenge or an issue in front of you, if you feel overwhelmed, if you feel stressed, you might be struggling with your emotional well-being a little bit and figuring out how to get to a healthier place, right? But if you feel like you are kind of just coasting, you're handling everything to the best of your ability, you don't feel overwhelmed, you don't feel stressed, you might be in a healthy state of your emotional well-being. So, psychological well-being. Psychological well-being is having a sense of purpose, self-acceptance, and the ability to grow and adapt. That is a huge one. A lot of times, we've talked in the podcast before about what purpose is, so if you haven't checked out the previous episodes, I encourage you to go check out some episodes. But Having a sense of purpose and self acceptance is huge when it comes to your mental health. Because when we feel like we have a purpose, which is something meaningful to do in our lives, it is having an intentional direction and setting a course and a path and being able to adapt to the ups and the downs that come along with, being intentional and directional about our lives, right? When we feel like we have somewhere to go and there's meaning behind that, we're just taking steps and we're in a good psychological place. And self acceptance tying into that, one of the questions that I really like to ask people, possibly that I love to ask people, is where's your sense of self love? Right? Because self-love for everyone, it can be tied into self-acceptance, how we accept ourselves. Because if we don't love ourselves, we're not going to say, "Oh man, I fully accept myself and everything that comes along with it. Life is great." If we don't have a sense of self-love, it ties into self-worth and self-acceptance, how we accept ourselves. There's a great task that I love to give people. And you can write this down if you want to. This is a reflection task. It's a two-part reflection task. So I always tell people to get something to write with, a notebook, a pen, a pencil. If that's too old school for you, get a device, whether it be a laptop, the note section in your phone you can use. And the first part of the reflection task is to set a timer for 3 minutes, 3 minutes at the minimum. You can always go over 3 minutes if you need more time. But you're to find a space where you have privacy, confidentiality. You can be alone with no distraction. So you want to find a good space and a good time to do it, right? Because everyday lives. And find a mirror. I want you to set the timer for 3 minute minimum. And I just want you to stare in the mirror at yourself. Now, a lot of people say, this is weird. This sounds weird. This feels weird. And I don't like it, right? Well, you have to face yourself. A lot of people are very uncomfortable with it because you're facing yourself. And I give 3 minute minimum because that first minute, we're always picking at ourselves. We're like, oh, is that a new blemish? Is that a gray hair? What's that? Or I don't like the way that my body looks, or I don't like the way that this shirt looks on me. I want you to really push past that. And just on a symbolic level, like look at yourself. And I want you to ask yourself the question, when I'm looking at myself, what do I see? What do I see? Do I see someone that is whole? Do I see someone that is broken? Do I see someone that is struggling, hurt, going through challenges? Someone that needs healing? Do I see someone that has accomplished a lot in life but is still unhappy? Do I see someone in life that has to wear a mask when I'm out at work or around friends or family or in social settings? And then I get home and I take that mask off and I look at myself and I don't even know who I am. I haven't even built up a self identity within myself. Do I see someone lost? So I want you to ask yourself the question, when I look at myself, who do I see? And when that timer goes off, either on your notebook or your note section in your phone or your device, I want you to sit down and write exactly what you see when you look at yourself. And right there, that's going to show you how you see yourself in the present moment. Is there self acceptance? Is there self worth? How am I loving myself right now based off of how am I seeing myself? Because when I ask people, do you love yourself right now? What is your, self worth? And do you accept yourself right now? The answer that I always get majority of the time is yes. Of course I love myself. Of course I accept myself. Well, then we ask the questions, what is self love to you? And a lot of people are just like, well, I know what love is. What is self love? What does it mean to actually love myself? It takes it off of that surface level. And now we have to dig on a deeper level to really explore. Well, I'm just so used to saying that I love myself and I accept myself. But what does it mean to do that? And how have I been doing that? So after exploration and navigation of what these things are to them, they find that maybe I haven't been loving myself the way that I'm supposed to. Maybe I didn't even have a definition of what it means to be an example of that to myself. So we find that we do have to work on, self-love, self-acceptance, based off of that person for who we see in the mirror. And that's not the case for everyone. Some people see a whole healed, thriving, sign sealed, and deliver person in the mirror, right? Some people are okay with who they see, and that represents a good psychological well-being of self-acceptance and the ability to grow and continue to progress and adapt to your certain circumstances. Okay, social well-being. What is social well-being? Social well-being is maintaining healthy relationships, feeling connected to others, and contributing to your community. So if you have a healthy social well-being, your relationships will be healthy. You will have great healthy communication. Whenever conflict arises, you guys know how to navigate it and find resolution, not dissociate, disconnect, and avoid it. We actually put the problem in front of us, practice solution focus or conflict resolution skills, and we come to a good endpoint with it, and we can continue to move forward in our relationship. It is healthy relationships. Well, we have a good balance of, just being okay with each other. I go out socially, I can kind of mingle. It is feeling a connection with others as you are socializing. Right. And it means contributing to your community, and not for everybody, but some people love to contribute to their community. Am I engaging in the community around me, whether it be, a church or a volunteer center or, even my job? Am I like, talking to people and flowing well within my job and feeling a connection there with others? So that's what it means to have a healthy social well-being. If you don't have a healthy social well-being or the healthiest social well-being, or you're not where you want to be, what it could look like is you're not maintaining healthy relationships. There's always conflict in the relationships. You're always feeling some type of way. And when we say relationships, this could be partnership. It could be family, sister, brother, uncle, cousin, mom, dad, grandparent. It could be friends, long-term friend or short-term friends that you just met. What do those relationships look like? Are they being maintained? Are they healthy? Do I have, friendships and I just go from friendship to friendship to friendship, and that one didn't work out, so I'm going to the next one, and that didn't work out, so I'm going to the next one. My family, am I having healthy relationships there, or are we just caught up in this cycle and this negative pattern where we're on again and off again? Things are good and we're not talking, and then we're talking and we're fighting and fussing, and then we're healthy again. So how are the patterns? If you have unhealthy off and on, cycling, rotating patterns, it's not as healthy as you probably think it is. If you feel disconnected to others, I feel like I don't fit in no matter where I go. I don't feel like I'm supposed to be there. I don't feel like I could really connect in. I'm not engaging in my community. I'm not engaging in, social things. If I'm at work, and I have an office, is my door shut all the time and I'm just not engaging at all? Am I isolating myself in social engagements? Am I pulling away and saying, well, I'm just introverted, right? And anyone that knows me, I will tell people all the time, I am a recovering introvert. Right? Which means I'm getting myself, more in the community. So I try to use the right language and I say, I used to be introverted, but now I'm moving towards this is my extroverted portion of my life where I'm putting myself out there and I'm engaged more. And it's just a healthy sense of well-being in the community and socially, right? So there's a difference between also being an introvert and isolating yourself. Because if you're introverted, you still can be a part of your community. You still feel connected to other people. It's just that you value, relationships on a different level. You value intimate relationships, and you don't have a friend that you go to the gym with and a friend that you eat out with and a friend that you invite over. You don't have a friend for everything. It's just you value more intimate, closer relationships in your social circles. So there's a difference between being introverted and isolating yourself. Isolating means I'm disconnecting. I'm disconnecting. I don't feel like I belong anywhere. I have no desire to connect into anyone or anything, right? So those are our 3 points: emotional well-being, psychological well-being, and social well-being. And when all three of these are in a healthy space, your mental health is in a healthy space. But how many of us know or have experienced in life that sometimes if it's not one thing, it's the other? So I may have a healthy emotional well-being and a healthy social well-being, but my psychological well-being is just not there, and I'm having struggles with that. Or I may have psychological well-being that's healthy and a healthy social well-being, but my emotional well-being is not the best. What does that look like? That may look like that mask that we talk about. So, psychologically, I feel like I have a sense of purpose and I feel like I'm growing and I'm adapting. Socially, I'm connecting to people, but emotionally, I'm not managing my emotions effectively as I'm going through all of the challenges of life. So I'm doing it and I'm growing, but maybe I feel stressed out all the time. Maybe I feel a little anxious all the time. Maybe I'm not expressing my feelings appropriately. I'm being very passive and I'm holding back. And I'm looking at everyone and I'm saying, "No, everything's fine. Everything's great." And then I go home and I take that mask off and I isolate and I'm sad and I disconnect from people. So we can have healthy well-being in one of these categories and be struggling with another. And at that point, right, of course, we have our friends and family as support, but also reach out to a therapist as a support or whoever can be a support system that can really help you. A lot of the times, our friends and our family and our partners are wonderful support systems. However, they are not our therapists. If we put the responsibility of our friends and family and loved ones, to kind of like take on, give me some therapeutic advice, then I like to tell people they cannot fully step into being who they are supposed to be to you. If my mom is my therapist, then I'm going to go to her for advice and therapy, and she cannot fully step into my life as my mom. If my friend, every time I call them up, it is kind of like, I need advice on this. I'm struggling with this. It's a challenge with it. If it's always like that and I'm seeking advice and guidance in every phone call, there's no check-in phone calls. There's no how are you phone calls. There's no let's go grab something to eat phone calls or social gatherings. It's just this is the person that I go to for just one strict thing for advice. And there's nothing wrong with that. But when it crosses the line of having a friend as being in a therapeutic role, it doesn't leave them space to be a friend in your life. We want our friends to be able to be our friends and give warranted advice when necessary. We want our parents to be able to be in the role of our parents. And of course, give advice and guidance because I feel like there's a duality in that role, right? We want our family or our coworkers to fully be able to be who they are to us and not always have to be, put in one category. If we need advice, therapy, or support in a non-biased, non-judgmental way, then I really encourage you to seek support in the field of counseling. Um, so, what are common misconceptions with mental health? Now that we know mental health is not just for people who have diagnoses of anxiety or depression, mental health, everyone has mental health and well being. Everyone has to take care of their mental health and their well being. What are some common misconceptions, some biases, some stigmas out there? A lot of the times I have run across in my career of being a licensed professional counselor, I don't want to go to therapy because it means something's wrong with me. And there's nothing wrong with me. It's only for serious problems that people go through. It means that something is wrong with someone if they say something's going on with their mental health or if they seek support from a therapist, right? Here's another one. I'm not telling my business to some stranger. Right? And it's just kinda like I say in certain, cultures or ethnicities, I've even heard of them going to the doctor and the doctor, the little surveys that they have, "Do you have any of these things in your family? Check them off," or they ask you, and, I've even heard someone say, "Well, I told them no because they need to figure out what's wrong with me." Well, sometimes that's a part of figuring out what's wrong with you. So hypothetically, if your family has diabetes that runs in it and your doctor asks you, or do you have anyone in your family with diabetes? Then sometimes the doctor needs to know that so they can keep a watchful eye out for blood sugar or spikes in anything else dealing with your physical health because they want to prevent it from happening. Right? Sometimes they need to know things to prevent it from happening. So I'm not going to a therapist to tell my business. How's that working out for you? Are you overwhelmed? Are you stressed? Are you just mentally and emotionally tired and drained and exhausted? You don't have to carry it by yourself. You don't have to carry it by yourself. Whatever you may be going through, whatever you may be struggling with, you don't have to carry it by yourself and alone. That's what a therapist is. It is not someone to tell your business to. It is not someone who's going to look at you and say something's wrong with you. It does not mean something's wrong with you in therapy. Some people will look at you and just say, you're going through that, but just get over it. Just get over it. You can get over it. You can get through it. You just have to believe it. Right. And we know that dealing with mental and emotional health, there's a shift that does have to occur in the mindset. But it's not just that easy as the flip of a switch. If I'm struggling with something, I just say, "Oh, I'm not struggling with this." You know, that's it. I'm moving on with my day. I'm moving on with it. Sometimes your mental and your thoughts and your cognitive patterns will just keep replaying something over and over and over and over again. And that's where people get in this space where they say, I feel stuck. I know that I believe I can get through this. I know that I'm saying that I can get through this and this is not going to have me stuck. But there's sometimes a process that people have to get to through that emotional and that mental shift to get to a healthier space in their lives. Sometimes people got to work the process. Now, don't get me wrong. I have come across people where they just said, I'm choosing intentionally not to deal with this anymore. And cold turkey, they could just get up and walk out of that problem, right? But then there are some people, right, where it comes to their psychological well being of self acceptance, self love, and self worth where they feel inadequate, where they feel like they don't have the tools and the resources to navigate that space where it has been stressful and it has been heavy, and there is a process that they have to get through and to. Some people can go cold turkey, some people got to work the process, you know? So those are some common misconceptions that people may have, but I want you to know that if you seek therapeutic support, if you reach out to a counselor, if you reach out to a therapist, a psychologist, it does not mean that there's anything wrong with you. It means that you just need a little bit of support navigating the present time space that you're in your life, and that is okay. That's okay. So, mental health also it plays a powerful role in how we think, feel, and act. It impacts everything from our relationships, burnout, withdrawal, challenges, misunderstanding, and conflict, right? And we just talked about how you could possibly support yourself through mental health struggles and challenges is reaching out to your support system. how can we support others, right? So if we are that family member that people come to, that friend or that coworker that people come to for advice, and sometimes you just feel like, oh my gosh, I'm your therapist, right? Sometimes we could joke around with people and say that, but sometimes there are people that really feel, I really feel like I'm your therapist. And it can be a little mentally draining and challenging. So if you are that person for someone, you have to set boundaries. And what do boundaries look like for someone that you want to help and you want to support, but you feel like it's crossing the line and you're getting just a little burnt out from being in that role and position in their lives? What you can do is you can sit them down, and you can have a conversation with them. You can say, hey, sometimes we spend a lot of times talking about issues and problems and challenges, and I feel like it really doesn't leave space for me to be your friend. And I really want to be more of your friend. I really want to step in that role more. I really want us to have that dynamic more. And you can say, have you ever tried therapy? Here's a great website to, find therapists in the area that you're in, or hey, I've heard such and such in my life, or maybe you've had therapy yourself and you're just like, therapy is really great. And I think it will be a great tool and resource for you navigating these challenges just a little bit better. As your friend, I see that you may be stuck. I see that you may be going through something. Just try it out. People that are hesitant of therapy, that don't have any expectations or don't know what to expect for therapy, people that are nervous, anxious, or worried about starting therapy, what I would encourage them to do is have the intake session, right? Just have an intake session. And then after that, have another session and see how you feel. And then after that, maybe one more. So I tell people at a minimum, try 2 to 3 sessions just to see how you feel about it, to assess your readiness. If you don't feel ready, bring that up to the person that you're talking to. Say, hey, I don't even know what readiness looks like. I don't know where to start. I've just been feeling heavy, going through issues or challenges. I don't think anything is wrong with me. I just think that I don't know how to navigate what's in front of me. And from there, you and your counselor or your therapist will be able to kind of say, okay, well, maybe we can start here. A therapist is just a fresh outside perspective, sometimes that we need. And therapy is not always long term, sometimes it is short term or brief for people, depending on the size of your challenge, depending on where your mental, emotional health is at the moment. Depending on what you just need help navigating through, you might get to one point and be like, I've got it from here. So nothing's wrong with you. Sometimes we all just get stuck in life at one time or point. So how you can support yourself is put yourself in the position of healthy to get the support and collaboration in your life that you need. And how we can support other people and really be there for other people is just offer suggestions, let them know how you feel and that you really want to be the role that you want to be in their lives. That has been established, a friendship, a family member, a coworker. I just really want to enjoy other parts of our relationship than me being your therapist. So, absolutely. Our mental health can actually play into physical health as well. So I will use the example of anxiety. If you or someone else who have experienced anxiety, let's just say anxiety starts with a negative thought in their mind. And someone says, I just have this feeling that something bad is going to happen, and you figure out where that anxiety comes, and every time you leave the house you just have this feeling that something bad is going to happen, right? What happens? It started as a thought in our mind, which is our cognitive, but then all of a sudden we started to experience somatic symptoms or physical symptoms, right? Psychological symptoms that overflow into our physical state. So you have this feeling and it stems from a thought. And now all of a sudden, your heart is racing, your palms are sweaty, you're feeling nauseous, you're getting headaches. So, however we feel in our psychological, right, it starts to overflow into our physical state and well being. So our mental health, our emotional well-being, psychological well-being, social well-being, whatever's going on cognitively with those things in our mental health in our lives, it can overflow into our physical well-being and health. So that's why it is very important to take care of your mental health. That's why everyone has mental health, right? So I'll even give an example. If you don't struggle with, generalized anxiety, which can be just everyday anxiety for some people about things that they probably need to, go seek help on, get support on, work on. If you have situational anxiety, if you have ever, I use myself as an example when I was younger, and I had to speak or present in front of the class, right? We're taking it all the way back to school. If I had to speak or present in front of a class, like my heart would start racing. My palms would get sweaty and the words would get jumbled out, and I couldn't speak the way that I wanted to speak. It just wasn't coming out right when I started to talk. There were nerves associated with anxiety about public speaking in front of people. But it was only when I had to speak in front of people. That can be labeled as situational or circumstantial anxiety. So it may happen in one circumstance and only when that circumstance arises. But what happened in that moment, right? The anxious thoughts about speaking in public kind of affected my psychological well being, right? My thoughts, my psychological well being that caused anxious symptoms flowing. It caused reoccurring negative thought patterns of what's going to happen. People are going to judge me. What are they going to say? Are they going to see that I'm nervous? Are they going to see that I'm anxious? So these thought patterns overflowed to my physical state, and I got the sweaty palms and my heart's racing and my words are not coming out the way that I need them to come out. So it causes circumstantial anxiety. So in certain circumstances, our mental health can depend on the present state of our overall lives in that moment, or our mental health can be affected by situations and circumstances that arise in our lives that we are involved in the moment. So our mental health can fluctuate. And it's very important whether it's situational or circumstantial, or it's just present in your life in the present moment, right? And or something happened in the past and you're feeling the symptoms from never healing, and it's coming and overflowing into your present time moment, things from your past that you never healed on. These are the things that we need to take care of. These are the things that we need to make sure are in a healthy space in our lives, because everybody has mental health to take care of. Everybody has a personal state of mental health and emotional well-being to take care of, right? So there is that. Now, how do I know that my mental health is being effective? I jotted down just a couple of things. How do I know that my mental health is being effective? What can poor mental health look like? Poor mental health in our present time can look like persistent sadness, anxiety, or irritability, loss of interest in things you used to enjoy, difficulty concentrating or making decisions, withdrawal from friends or activities, changes in sleep and appetite, or feelings of hopelessness or worthlessness, right? And these are things that you may not have struggled with before. These are things that started to just, occur or have been persistent, and you just know that it's not a part of who you are. It's something that arose in your life, changes in your life that indicate poor mental health, something that you are struggling with, something that you need to kind of seek support on to get to a healthier space. What does good mental health look like in our lives? Feeling generally positive about yourself and your life, being able to manage stress effectively, coping with challenges and setbacks, having a good sense of self identity, building and maintaining meaningful relationships, having a balance in your emotions and your thoughts. So you're not emotionally impulsive or always confused or having trouble making decisions. Everything is it feels manageable in your life. You ever have a time in your life where you're just like, I feel good. And not just when people say, "How you doing?" and you just respond, "Good, how are you?" That's that general response, right? Like, but when you genuinely feel good and things are just manageable and things are flowing in your life in just such an intentional way because you are taking care of yourself. When we take care of ourselves, the more we take care of ourselves, the more our mental health stays in a healthy, consistent state. When our mental health is in a poor state, right? And we said what that was and some of those symptoms, and things are just not manageable for us, and we feel stressed out and overwhelmed, and we're withdrawing and we're not connecting, we're not maintaining meaningful relationships, and we just feel like something's off in our lives. But we do have a little sense of self-care. Sometimes we need to shift our self-care because what worked previously may not be working for you now. So sometimes we do have to adjust our self-care. Sometimes we got to increase it. Sometimes we have to try new things, that the older things that we were still doing or overflowing from different versions of us, maybe they're not working anymore, through growth and experiences in life. As we continue to grow and experience new things and overcome challenges, sometimes we need different things in our lives. That's why what used to work sometimes in some cases may not work, in our present moments. We have to find new ways to take care of ourselves and keep ourselves in healthy positions. So, in this episode, we really navigated what is mental health, right? And we said that mental health is how you think, feel, and connect with the world around you. It is what helps you handle stress, build relationships, make decisions, and find more meaning in life. Everyone has a mental health that they can and do need to take care of. Mental health can be emotional, psychological, and impact our social well-beings. So, taking care of your mental health means paying attention to your emotions, giving yourself space to rest, and reaching out for support when you need it. It is about learning to understand yourself and finding healthy ways to cope with life's ups and downs. So I hope that you got something out of this podcast. Throughout every episode, we're really going to be touching on what mental health is, as it connects to different things in our lives, as it connects to circumstances. We'll even get into, diagnoses such as depression, anxiety. If there is a topic that you would like to hear more about, drop that in the chat and the comment section, and let's see if we can get an episode to talk about, the things that the community wants to talk about as well. So I hope that you have been inspired. I hope that you learned something. If there is more that you would like to know, please take a look at our previous episodes. Please tune into episodes to come. Again, my name is Virginia Murray. I am a licensed mental health counselor. I hope that you have a wonderful day, and don't forget to check in on yourself.